Hey, and welcome into the Big Ten Huddle presented and brought to you by FanDuel. I am JR, and I am here to talk with you about the things going on in the Big Ten. Nice little mix of football and basketball in this episode for you of the Big Ten Huddle, as we are going to get to 5 Big Ten teams in football that are going to have better records. I'm making my prediction. I'm putting my stance on it now, that are going to have better records in 2026. And then going to get into Purdue and Indiana. Obviously, Indiana got the big win. What does that mean for them? Is this a turning point in their season? Purdue, it's not a 3-game losing streak right now. Are they okay? Are their goals and everything still in front of them this season with Braden Smith, Fletcher Loyer, TKR, all those guys there? And then finally, Iowa gets the win over USC in a pretty crazy game. We're going to talk about it, our takeaways, things like that, and everything in this game, and get to it all. So please do like, subscribe, do all that good stuff for us. Comment in order to try and win some free home field apparel. Remember, if you comment on this video, like, subscribe, then you will be entered in for a chance to win a free item from Home Field. You don't have to pay for it. You don't have to pay for shipping. I will respond to your comment, let you know at the end of the month if you won. And if you won, I'll just pretty much you email me, you let me know where and what you want, and I will buy it for you, send it to you, and you'll get it in the next few days. If you all want to buy something from Home Field, there is an affiliate link down in the description is below. Please use that. Helps me, helps you. You get some good Home Field, and then also I am able to show people that I can have a sponsor and people can utilize the stuff. So please do that. Definitely helps us out. All right, let's get into this stuff with the Big Ten. Big Ten records in 2026 that will be better than what they were in 2025. Now, as you might imagine, many of these teams did not have very good records in 2025, and one of them was Wisconsin, who went 4-8, and they were 2-7 in the Big Ten. Now, two of those wins, actually, those only 2 wins in the Big Ten were wins against ranked teams. So obviously, it showed that Wisconsin can get those wins, but pretty much every team Wisconsin played was ranked in 2025 because they just had one of the most daunting, one of the most difficult schedules in the entire country last season. This year, Wisconsin has, I wouldn't say an easy schedule compared to the rest of the country, but a favorable schedule compared to the rest of the Big Ten. They start off the year in a neutral site game against Notre Dame. That game is obviously tough, and I'm not expecting Wisconsin to win that game. However, Notre Dame is going to be playing quite a few players from the transfer portal that don't have proven production yet. So what's that going to look like? But plenty of other players on their team have proven production. So I'm not picking Wisconsin to win that game, but I do think there are other games on here that they could win. Obviously, Western Illinois, Eastern Michigan are there. Those should be easy wins for Wisconsin. They shouldn't have any issues there. And then all they need are 3 Big Ten wins on the season. You get 2 out of conference wins. You need 3 Big Ten wins to beat out what you had in 2025, which was just 4 overall wins. And so really, at the end of the day, if you break this down, you just need to win one of USC, Michigan State, Rutgers, or Minnesota. Just win one. Just win one of those 4 games right there. All of them doable, okay? USC maybe the least doable there, but all of them doable to be able to get the win. And then just win 2 of UCLA, Maryland, or Purdue. Again, those are more winnable games. I think at the end of the day, this is for sure lock it in at the very least 5 wins for Wisconsin. Even if you get a terrible situation like what they've gone through with injuries and stuff, I still think that this defense of Wisconsin that we have seen over the years under Mike Tressel can lead them to that. So the only potential issue here is if the team does start, say, 2-6 or something like that, because you do have a bit of a difficult start. Penn State being your very first Big Ten game, USC there pretty close. Who knows what Michigan State's going to be this season? You do get them at home, thankfully, but Pat Fitzgerald is a good coach, and we'll see what goes on there. But at the end of the day, if Luke Fickell makes it through the entire season, which he should, I mean, this is a conference schedule that is favorable for Wisconsin. They should be fine in this situation. They should make it to at the very least 5 wins. And even if they do start something like 2-6 or something like that, you still have the ability to get those 5 wins. So I think Wisconsin is pretty much a lock here. The other team that I have that will be better record-wise is Penn State. They finished the season 6-6 last year. Of course, they won the bowl game, but we're just talking about regular season wins and losses here. They were 3-6 in the Big Ten, and Penn State had a really difficult stretch after their Oregon game. Now, they faced Northwestern and UCLA. Those are not the games I'm talking about that were most difficult. I'm talking about Ohio State, Indiana, and Iowa they faced after their bye week, which, when you don't win those games against Northwestern and UCLA, it makes things really, really difficult for you. But Penn State has 3 easy wins to start the season. Marshall, yes, at Temple, but you should win that one just fine. Okay, you're Penn State. You should win that just fine. And then Buffalo. So you're going to have 3 easy wins right off the bat. And then you really only need to beat 4 of there's other tougher teams on here, but you really only need to beat 4 of Wisconsin, Rutgers, at Northwestern, Purdue, and at Maryland. So steal one of those 2 road games and then win your 3 home games that I just mentioned there, and Penn State will be just fine. I actually think Penn State has a good chance to get 10 wins this season. So unless they just completely fall apart or something like that in conference play, they're going to be totally fine. They're going to get over 6 wins, and I would not be surprised at all if we see Penn State at 9-10 wins possibly this season. I'm not predicting that, but I am predicting they're going to get more than 6 wins this season. You can write that down, book it, essentially. All right, Purdue is the next team here, my third team, 2-10 last year. Now, I will say for Purdue, this is a little bit of a difficult situation because they do only have one game that is not a Power 4 team. And I don't know why Purdue is scheduling this way. If I'm Purdue, I'm getting Notre Dame off my schedule. I'm getting Wake Forest off my schedule in the future. I mean, Indiana's playing 9 Power 4 games right now, and they just won the national championship. So whoever's at Purdue making these decisions, please, you need to gain some momentum. Listen, I want to see these teams play tough out of conference games, but I don't want to see Big Ten teams make it too tough on themselves and they go out and lose. That being said, Wake Forest is a possible win, and in fact, with it being a home game, it could be a likely win for Purdue. Wake Forest is not a great team. It's not been a great program. They're from the ACC. They have some players pop up every now and then, but this Purdue team, even with playing 11 Power 4 teams, they should be just fine to get over 2 wins. They have Indiana State. That's a given at the beginning of the season. All you need to do, beat Wake Forest, you tie your wins from last year, and then you just need one of Maryland, Washington, at Illinois, or Wisconsin. Now, Wisconsin is not a given. I just mentioned Wisconsin before for Penn State. Wisconsin is not a given for any of these teams, but if you get into a situation where Wisconsin has some of the bad luck that they've had, and they, for whatever reason, just do not look like a good football team this year, I say for whatever reason, they've looked like that multiple times under Luke Fickell, just don't look like a good football team, then it's a possible win as well. We need to see Luke Fickell put together a good team before we really start believing that they are a team that is going to be a for sure win against some of these other teams. So Purdue, they should get over the 2-win mark. The fact that they have 11 Power 4 games does make me a little nervous, but overall, they should get to the 3-win mark at the very least. I know Purdue fans want more than that, and I think that Purdue fans should expect more than that. You have Ryan Brown coming back, Barry Odom in his second year there at Purdue. You should get more than that, but obviously we'll see what happens. Another team with a losing record, my 4th team on here, is UCLA. Now, UCLA has a much more manageable out of conference this season than they had last year. They played New Mexico, UNLV, and Utah last year. And they even, I think they played at UNLV for that game. Not great decision-making by UCLA there. And then by the time they played New Mexico at home, the confidence on that team was shot. Sean Foster was fired after that game, as rightfully so for that to happen. I don't see that happening this season. Obviously, they're not going to fire Bob Chesney in year 1 or anything, nor do I think he's going to be even near the position for that to happen. I think they start this season 2-1 at the very worst. Cal does have some talent. They start at Cal, and Cal does have some talent that they acquired through the transfer portal, but it's still Tosh Luploy's very first time being a head coach at the FBS level. I don't think he's ever been a head coach anywhere. So it's going to be his very first time as a head coach. And yes, you are traveling to Cal, but this is still a likely win, in my opinion, for UCLA with the talent that they've brought in and with what Bob Chesney has brought in. So as far as I'm concerned, you win that game, you're 3-0 in the out of conference, which already sets you up to be better than you were last year. Just win one of Michigan State, Wisconsin, at Maryland or Illinois, and you're set up there. All right. Those are all winnable games for UCLA. In fact, they have more winnable games than that. Those are just some of the ones I picked out there that, like, okay, these are probably the most winnable. Obviously, not all the same winnability, but probably the most winnable of them. So UCLA in this situation, I think they get over the 3-win mark. All right. Now for a team who does have a winning record, who did have a winning record in 2025, and some people might be surprised by this, but I'm going to go with the Iowa Hawkeyes. Iowa last season, 8-4, 6-3 in the conference. Listen, last year's schedule was brutal for Iowa. It sucked. All right. That was a schedule that not enough people gave credit for how difficult it was. We did think that there was a possibility they could win some of those big games because they got Indiana at home, they got Oregon at home, right? They faced USC on the road, and so they thought, we thought, well, maybe they get the USC win there. We'll see. And it looked like they were going to at some point, but it just didn't work out for them last year. This year, the schedule is much more manageable, much more favorable for them. Last year showed that Iowa they are not a guaranteed W for some of these top tier teams in the Big Ten. We kind of thought, Oregon's going to for sure beat them and stuff like that. It wasn't a for sure win for Oregon last year. It wasn't a for sure win for the national champions at Indiana last year. So, you got to watch out for Iowa. And there's 3 keys that I think Iowa needs to do in order to get to 9 wins or more next season. First off, you need to get the rivalry sweep. And this is not uncommon for Iowa. Iowa is used to sweeping their rivals, at least lately. All right. They do this quite often. If not, at the very least get 2 or 3 wins, depends on how many rivals they face. They do have 3 for sure rivals, but I count 4 on this schedule because of Iowa State, obviously. But 3 for sure rivals in the Big Ten. That's what I meant. Sorry. But Iowa State should be an easy win. I mean, with them losing a lot of their roster, new head coach Kirk Ferentz should take care of them, no problem. At Minnesota is tough, but they've also won their last 5 matchups at Minnesota. So, even though Minnesota does have some good talent this season and Drake Lindsey coming back, still think Iowa should get that win there. So they're 4-0 in their rivalry games. And then just essentially beat the teams you're supposed to beat. There's 5 teams on the schedule that you're supposed to beat, quite frankly. Northern Illinois is on there. University of Northern Iowa, UNI is on there. At Northwestern, at Illinois is going to be tough, even though Illinois does lose Luke Altmaier and some of those guys that they had brought back last year. And then you get Purdue at home. You should go 5-0 in that stretch, quite honestly. And you go 4-0 in the rivalry sweep, you're there. Now, what happens if you drop one of those? If you, for whatever reason, you drop one of your rivalry games, you drop one of those games, maybe it's the Illinois game on the road, whatever it is, you mess up and you can still win one of the other 3 that you have, because you have at Washington, Ohio State, and at Michigan. And this Washington team, who knows what they're going to be next season? I have them as a top 20 team, but who knows what they're going to be with Damon Williams, that whole situation and everything. We'll see what happens. Ohio State, they're going to have a really loaded schedule. Iowa's probably not even a top 5 most difficult game on their schedule. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to Iowa here. Just go look at that schedule. It's pretty difficult for the Buckeyes. And so maybe the Buckeyes are tired out or something in one of these games, and maybe they don't even need to be tired out. Like I said, they went toe-to-toe with both Oregon and Indiana at Iowa last season. So you can go toe-to-toe with Ohio State again, or Ohio State, another top-tier team in the Big Ten again. And then finally at Michigan, who knows exactly what Michigan's going to be next season, but with Kirk Ferentz, his experience, his guys and everything, and Kyle Whittingham coming into there, they could definitely get that win as well. So I really like Iowa's chances. As long as they take care of business with what they're supposed to, I really like Iowa's chances to contend for a playoff spot next season. Would love for Mark Gronowski to be there this year, but I trust Kirk Ferentz knows what he's doing with the quarterback situation here, and we'll see what happens. So going to hit a break really fast. We'll come back. We'll talk about, is Purdue basketball okay? They doing okay. Lot of stuff happened to Purdue these past 3 games. We're going to talk about it all and see if Purdue basketball is okay. We'll be right back. Purdue basketball has lost three consecutive games. They had that late collapse to UCLA on January 21st, an 88-82 home loss to number 11 Illinois at the time on January 24th, where Keaton Wagler scored 46 points in that game, and then a 72-67 defeat at Indiana. This streak dropped them from a top 5 team to number 12 with a 17-4 overall record, now 7-3 in the Big Ten. This puts pressure on them in the conference and their title hopes, and other teams like Illinois and Michigan State starting to pull ahead. Now, Michigan State, they had their own struggle with Rutgers, but they did come out and win that game. Even though it went to overtime and everything, they still came out and won that game. Purdue on that 3-game skid right now. They were previously a 1-loss team, and these close defeats, all by a total margin of 18. 3 defeats, all by a total margin of 18, give Purdue a bit of a mid-season slump here, right? January slump, if you will, what's kind of unraveling at Purdue. Now, there's been issues during this slump and kind of what's been going on. Late game execution has definitely been one of those things. They kind of collapsed in crunch time a little bit. The UCLA game, the Indiana game, they came back a little bit in that one, but still weren't able to do as much. Illinois pulled ahead with a lot of firepower on offense. Yes, Keaton Wagler scored a lot of points, but at the end of the game, it really wasn't Keaton just going crazy. It was Jake Davis and some of those other guys hitting threes, and Purdue not doing a great job switching, getting on to their next man, and closing out on the shooters. The Illinois five-man out kind of offense really was giving them a hard time there. Once they started to pressure Clough on the perimeter a little bit more, that was giving them a hard time. And one of the reasons that you look at one of these struggles is because you're not getting the consistent play out of your big 3. Now, I'm not targeting Braden Smith here. Braden Smith has been really, really good this season, if not one of the best players, if not the best player in the country. At times during this season, he has been really, really special, as we know Braden Smith is. The problem is that Fletcher Loyer has not been special. Fletcher Loyer has been in a slump the last few games. Trey Kaufman-Renn, he's been in a bit of a slump. Now, he did get, what was that? I think 24 or 25 against Indiana, but only a handful of rebounds, and just not enough rebounding out there, and some issues on the perimeter with his defense as well. It's been a struggle for Purdue. Their perimeter defense has suffered, and when you switch them off and get them onto the right matchups, teams are doing a good job of taking advantage of that. On the offensive end, Purdue is struggling with their jump shots. Seems to be over relying on those jump shots. I've never really loved the over reliance on the jump shots, but they were hitting them earlier in the season, and so you can't really complain about it. You're 17-1. You're hitting your jump shots. You're forcing other teams to take jump shots as well, which is always helpful. But when you face a team like Illinois, who they don't take jump shots, they just take threes, that can really get you into some issues. Same thing with Indiana. Indiana was knocking down their threes, and the course that arena, Assembly Hall, that hall was rocking when they were hitting their threes there, which made it even harder for Purdue in that situation. And overall, it's some of the defensive lapses as well. Donovan Dent really kind of took off in the second part of that first half, and then into the second half as well. He kind of took off and became that star that they needed him to. And then Keaton Wagler, the way he was able to switch off his defenders against Purdue and really just get whatever matchups he wanted. Purdue's probably going to have to rethink some of their screen games, because you just can't leave Oscar Clough and Trey Kaufman-Renn out there on the perimeter against guys like Keaton Wagler. Now, normally they have a better height advantage in those situations, but with Keaton Wagler at 6'6" and his kind of dagger ability to hit those 3-pointers, which were multiple steps back from the 3-point line, at a certain point, there wasn't anything you could do about that. Honestly, I'm more critical of Purdue, kind of switching and not being able to get out on their man on the pick and pop with Jake Davis and some of those other guys at the end of the Illinois game, more so than I am kind of, picking at what they did with Keaton Wagler, because some of those shots that Wagler was taking, those were just him hitting them. It wasn't bad defense or anything. Yeah, they were sagging off him a little bit, but he was also 2 or 3 steps behind the 3-point arc in some of those situations. So what are you going to do? Maybe you start putting one of the other guys on him, but Braden Smith doesn't have the size to guard a Keaton Wagler, and Fletcher Loyer, as long as he's struggling on offense, we see some of his struggles on defense as well. And they really didn't have anybody that matched up well with Wagler. Jakari Harris and some of those guys, they didn't have the height to be able to go up against him. And there's not a ton of Waglers out there, right? That's kind of what the thought process was with the first two losses of Illinois and UCLA. It's like, what are you going to do? Donovan Dent finally turns into the 5-star transfer portal player that we all thought he was, and he starts pulling that out. Keaton Wagler, I mean, he's hitting shots from 2-3 steps behind the three-point arc. What are you going to do? But it was that Indiana game where Indiana was just playing with so much pace and effort and shooting the three-pointer so well, and just quite frankly out-rebounding Purdue. There is no reason why this Purdue front court with Oscar Clough and Trey Kaufman-Renn should be having issues rebounding over guys like Reed Bailey and Tucker DeVries out there. Yes, Tucker DeVries is a good player, but he is not a consistent 4 for you in the Big Ten, and Reed Bailey is not a consistent 5 for you in the Big Ten. Now, he doesn't always play the 5, but he does play the 5 a good amount. And in those situations, Oscar Clough and Trey Kaufman-Renn should have been able to grab some more of those boards and bring them down. And that was one of the main issues that you saw in that game. As far as fixing the issues, they need to recommit to the inside out offense. They need to emphasize their post ups. They need to get back into the pick and roll with Trey Kaufman-Renn, Oscar Clough, and Daniel Jacobson needs to be involved in this as well. And they need to do a good job of drawing fouls and getting to the free throw line too, and get the other team's big men in some trouble as well. That's going to help them to be able to get down low, get away from all those jump shots and everything. And if you're going to take a jump shot, hit a 3, right? Now, Matt Painter obviously realizes that his team is able to hit the jumper really well, and that's something those guys are comfortable with. So you don't want to take it away. I'm not saying Purdue needs to turn into Illinois and basically only shoot within the paint or behind the three-point arc. Like they're not an NBA offense or anything like that, but I do think you have to make the pick and roll more of a threat. You have to establish it as more of a threat in some of these games. Yes, they do a good job of getting out in transition, and Braden Smith is doing a good job with that, and him getting to the basket, passing out. Obviously, he's going to rack up the assists, but put him in some of those easier situations to help them out. Not that they aren't doing pick and roll right now. I just want to see more of it. I want to see more of it in those kind of late time executions. Get to your bread and butter, get to what you do best, and one of the things that's most reliable for you. They need to improve that late game management as well. Focus on reducing the turnovers. They need to have some better free throw shooting as well. The clutch defense has been an issue in these games too. In that Indiana game, in that Illinois game, like I said, it wasn't just Keaton Wagler at the end of the game. And quite honestly, they need to increase their physicality, right? I'm not saying get more physical and get fouls, but I am saying get more physical to get rebounds, and also be more physical down low to try and draw fouls as well. Aim to foul out some of the rival, players in the post and some of these guys. You should not be having the issues rebounding and having the issues down low against Indiana that you were, because quite frankly, Purdue's front court was just far superior to Indiana's this season. But Indiana's came out, they looked like they wanted it more. They played better in that game. And so there's not really much you can do. So 10 Big Ten games left for this team. They need to really find out where they're at, what they're going to do. But at the end of the day, if you're a Purdue fan, if you're this Purdue team, don't panic, right? This is not a time to panic for them. Recovery is feasible at this point. Are they going to win the Big Ten? Probably not, but at the same time, Purdue overcame 7-2 or worse starts to the Big Ten, and they still won the title in 2010, 2017, 2019, and 2024 under Matt Painter. So, that 2018 team, they also rebounded from a 3-game losing skid as well. So right now they're at plus 2,500 to win the Big Ten on FanDuel. That makes them 5th in the Big Ten. That's really where you see the drop off first start to happen. I think plus 800 is the team right in front of them. I think that might be Michigan State or Illinois, one of those two. Pretty sure Nebraska's third at this point in there. You'll go check it out if you want to go bet on it. But they're still in Big Ten contention, even though it does look a little bleak right now. The Big Ten is a very difficult league. You have a team like Michigan State struggling in overtime against Rutgers, right? Illinois is on a winning streak right now, but Illinois, they tend to falter at some point with some of this stuff. Nebraska just lost to Michigan, and Michigan, they've proved that they have some weaknesses as well, and they're not completely healthy right now. So who knows, right? But just focus on yourself, win your games, get out there. And as far as the tournament goes with the NCAA tournament and everything, yeah, you want to worry about seeding, you want to get that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, there are so many teams that can make it far in the tournament with so many different seeds. As long as you're not dropping to a 5 or a 6 seed or anything like that, and I don't see Purdue dropping there, especially if they continue to play their game and recover from this. You're going to be just fine. Get a top 4 seed at the very least, aim for the Sweet 16, and just keep going, keep improving, keep getting there. This is a team that has the talent and has the players to be able to win a national championship. They just need to get there, and they just need to make it happen. So see the resilience for the growth, see the physicality for the growth, and I think over time, it'll be okay for Purdue. Again, do I think they're going to win the Big Ten? I wouldn't bet on them to win the Big Ten this season. But if you're somebody that says, hey, they've been through worse before, and they, look at 2010, 2017, 2019, maybe not worse, but similar in those years, 2024, and they were still able to win the Big Ten. I'm not saying they're out of the question yet, but at the end of the day, I think this team is going to have the most, description of success in the NCAA tournament. So just get that top 4 seed. They'll be fine. Matt Painter's been through this before. He's been able to recover. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back to talk about Indiana and where they might be after their big win over Purdue. Indiana gets the big win over Purdue, 4 wins in their last 5 matchups over Purdue. And Darian DeVries' first year as head coach of Indiana, he was getting some criticism. They went through that 4-game skid where they had 4 straight losses. Now, I think the thing people need to remember, those are 4 good teams in the Big Ten, 3 really good teams, 3 contenders in the Big Ten. You had home against Nebraska, and you did lose at home against Iowa. I think I would have a little bit more reservation or a little bit more understanding there if it was on the road, but you lose on the road to Michigan State, on the road to Michigan, and those games didn't look super competitive, but you get the win over Rutgers, you blow them out, you get the win over Purdue now. They had 0 returning players for returning points from last season. Excuse me. And now they're 14-7, 5-5 in the Big Ten, kind of middle of the pack. They're 93rd nationally. In offense, and kind of some inconsistent results. But if this team can really put it together like we saw against Purdue, then you're going to see some good basketball going forward, and really kind of revitalizing Bloomington, who just saw a national championship for the football team. I don't think people are necessarily expecting the national championship out of Darian DeVries in this first year. Maybe some people are. I can't imagine they are. But and I know Indiana fans will tell me that's not the expectation. But Indiana's kind of been through it a little bit. They dropped close or winnable games against strong opponents, road losses to UCLA. Like I said, Michigan State, they lost to Illinois. That was a tough 4-game stretch there where they lost 4 in a row. They've had issues kind of integrating the roster. They've had guys that didn't start the season that are starting to come in now. And then but this Purdue victory really could catapult them as their first quad 1 victory of the season. You see the Purdue win for them over number 12 Purdue, which is 72-67, first quad 1 win. It added to Purdue's losing streak, which you love to see there. And then you got guys like Lamar Wilkerson, who was still able to put up 19 points after not hitting, not being super efficient, hitting threes from the 3-point line. And then Connor Enwright was clutch in this game as well. He made some clutch plays as well. And, not everybody's been super fond of Connor Enwright this season, but in that game, he was able to come up with some really clutch plays and make some things happen. So this really boosts the overall attitude, the morale for the teams. I think Darian DeVries, it really kind of boosts his confidence as a coach as well to get that win over Matt Painter. But some of the key issues that we've seen this season that I think they're starting to correct now are some of those roster turnover effects, the chemistry problems. You're starting to see a team that is more cohesive, especially in that Purdue game. They were much more cohesive. They've had turnover issues this season, but again, that chemistry, that cohesion is starting to help, get rid of that a little bit. The DeVries kind of faster pace SEC style of system does make it a little bit more difficult for a team who doesn't have as much chemistry. So I really do feel like as Indiana goes on throughout the year, this is what you're starting to see. This game against Purdue, I'm not saying that they're going to play like this every single week. I'd love it if they did, but I do think that this is kind of the start of seeing that chemistry kind of coincide and all come together. So some of the poor shooting they had can contribute to that as well, but they fixed that by just getting there with really strong defense, kind of some bend but don't break mentality. They held Purdue to only 67 points, despite Purdue having a late rally in that one. And then the offensive improvements as well. When they're shooting their threes lights out, I don't know if there's very many teams in the country that can beat them when they're shooting their best, but it really comes down to the ball movement and reducing the turnovers. You saw excellent ball movement in that Purdue game. You saw guys really getting used to them being around, veterans stepping up like Wilkerson and Enwright, and also getting down low and being more physical. That's a Purdue. I was talking about it when we were talking about Purdue. That's a Purdue front court that has been better than Indiana. Obviously, Oscar Clough, TKR, they've been excellent. But you saw a more physical front court out of Indiana in this game with Reed Bailey and Tucker DeVries down there. They were being more physical, getting more rebounds, and doing a great job down there. But the in-game adjustments from DeVries are key as well, right? That kind of stuff really highlights this team and where they can be. If you're going to continue to get this kind of defense out of Connor Enwright against whatever point guard he sees or anything like that, you're going to see a whole lot more success for this team as the season goes on. Now, are we expecting him to shut down a player of Braden Smith's caliber every single night? No, but you do need a guy out there who you can rely on defensively. And Connor Enwright, if he is really coming into that and can continue to give that great effort, whenever you see Braden Smith get close to the amount of turnovers that he gets assists, I believe he had 0 assists in the first half of that game as well. That's when you really see Purdue start to struggle the most, because if they are not getting their facilitator going through the offense and getting the ball to their guys, that's really when you see Purdue see the worst of their team out there. And that was caused by Indiana. That was caused by Connor Enwright. I saw some people saying, well, off game for Braden Smith, it is what it is. Guys, let's give Indiana credit here. Give Indiana the credit. They did a fantastic job in this game. 40 minutes of Connor Enwright chasing around Braden Smith. I don't know if he'll ever guard anybody that difficult for that long ever again in his career. I mean, he did a fantastic job. And Nick Dorn as well. I remember when they signed Nick Dorn, I did a video on the channel talking about how impressive it was and how good of a thing it was for this Indiana team to get him. And then he's now started his second straight game coming back and being able to do that, putting up 18 points, getting hot from three. And that's something that we've seen from Purdue this season. They have issues with, they kind of get down, and that can really demoralize your opponent when you're hitting threes like that, especially when they're on the road. So as Assembly Hall, continue to make that happen. And I think that they can win the rest of their games at Assembly Hall the rest of the season. They have Wisconsin, Northwestern, Oregon there. Minnesota is coming there as well. Really the only game that I would say they're probably not going to be favored in at home is that Michigan State game, where Michigan State, the odds will be on their side in that one, but we've seen Michigan State struggle this season as well. And even though they've gotten some games where they win by double digits, it doesn't mean that they weren't struggling at some point during those games too. So I definitely think Michigan State is beatable for Indiana. You just saw them beat Purdue, so Michigan State is definitely beatable. And then some of these road games are good road games to be able to win too. UCLA, they've been a little inconsistent this season. You catch them on the right night, that's a game they can certainly win. USC, they've not been the most disciplined team, tall, athletic team, but they've not been the most disciplined this season. You can definitely get that one. Ohio State, that's hardly even a home court advantage. That home court absolutely is awful and atrocious and embarrassing for them. So, going there, it's like, all right, you've won, you've won at Ohio State plenty over the years. Really, the only two games you have left that are of maximum difficulty to keep you from winning out the rest of the season is the away game against Illinois and the away game against Purdue. I mean, this team has odds of minus 290 on FanDuel to make it to the tournament. I'd even put it higher at this point because probably the floor record for this team that I see at the end is 18 and 13. I think they can do even better than that. To me, that's the floor, 18 and 13. The ceiling for this team is even higher. I think they can get to 22, dare I say 23 wins on the season. You just beat Purdue at home. Can you go into Mackey and get that win? I mean, Illinois just went into Mackey and got the win. I'm not saying Indiana's Illinois, but I am saying that's something that can definitely happen, and that's something that Indiana fans can definitely think about. Now, am I saying that's the expectation and Darian DeVries needs to be fired if it doesn't happen? No, of course not, but focus on winning those home games, split the road games, and you're going to find yourself right there at 20 wins to do that. If you say you beat Ohio State and USC on the road and you win 4 out of your 5 final games there, you're at 20 wins right there. Win 4 out of your 5 final home games and get Ohio State and USC on the road, and you're fine. You can get that for sure. Now, Ohio State, they're not easy out. Ohio State's pretty good this season. They just don't have much of a home court advantage. So this is right now, this is kind of middle of the pack Big Ten team, but I could definitely see this team getting themselves up there in the top 6, top 7, and getting themselves a good seed in the tournament. Right now, projected kind of around, from what I'm seeing certain places, around a 10 seed and stuff like that. I think they can just keep growing from there. I think this is a team that can just keep growing from there, get up to a 9, get up to an 8 seed, something like that. Going to be even more favorable for them. And I really like this Indiana's team's chances moving forward. If they continue to play like they did against Purdue, look, I'm not saying it's, a given or anything, but win the games you're supposed to win, steal a couple of those road games against a couple teams that are a little bit more vulnerable to that. And this Indiana team can make some big noise this season. We'll be right back after this. Iowa survives at home against USC as Iowa, they struggled in Iowa City with a furious start for the USC Trojans who came out, but Iowa was resilient in this game and they were able to handle a bad ending, a bad start, really good middle of the game. But USC started this game 10 to nothing in about the first 6 minutes of the game. Iowa did not score until 6 minutes and 14 seconds had gone by. I think it was the 13-minute and 46-second mark is when they finally hit a free throw. It wasn't even a field goal, hit a free throw to get them some points. But between I should say between that and the ending that they had, where USC ended the game going 20 points to 7 points for Iowa in the last little bit over 5 minutes at the end of that game. In the middle there, Iowa outscored USC 66 to 42. Tavion Banks and Bennett Stirtz both had 20 points in this game. Alvaro Folgueiras, he scored 10 points in the second half alone. Banks fouled out in this game, and after Banks, not after he fouled out, but after he went out, he came back in for another minute and then fouled out after that. But after he kind of went out one of the final times, that was when Alvaro was able to step in and score 7 huge points for this team, 10 points overall in the second half. When you look at some of the key stats in this game, Iowa didn't shoot all that well, 42% from the field. Not a great offensive night. USC did a really good job of utilizing their length and utilizing their athleticism to take away Bennett Stirtz. Now, Bennett Stirtz still got his. He still got to the free throw line. That's the kind of guy he is. That's the kind of player he is. But they also only shot 32% from three. You just weren't getting a ton of production from the 3-point line. But what do? They get offensive rebounds. 12 offensive rebounds in this game. 16 fast break points. The fast break points were key, not necessarily because there were a ton of them. 16 is a good amount of fast break points, but because of when you got them. We'll go over that in a little bit, but when you got them, and then also 22 free throw attempts in this game, shot 86% from the free throw line. Those free throw attempts came in handy at the end. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, with the bad foul by USC, but hitting your free throws, doing a good job with that. It was imperative because it was a really poor start for Iowa at the beginning of this game. I mean, they had turnovers, they were committing fouls, 0 points, like I said, for about the first 6 minutes of the game. Al has to start better on offense. He is too good of a player to go cold for that long and to wait to score the majority of his points in the second half. And he is too important offensively for this team. Does he have to score 20, 30 points a game? No, he doesn't have to, but you can't wait to the second half to get the majority of your points. They need to do a better job. He needs to do a better job, and the offense needs to do a better job of putting him in position. USC's athleticism was given Iowa fits in this game, but they were able to lock down defensively. Despite the cold offense, Iowa's defense locked in and kept USC at just 10 points until the 13-minute and 33-second mark. So, about 6.5 minutes into this game, USC only has 10 points. There's a lot of teams that would have not gave up defensively, but really struggled defensively because the offense wasn't there, hung their head. But that's not what you saw from this Iowa team. You saw a resilient Iowa team that continued to put their foot forward, continued to play strong defense, and the defense started creating for their offense. Iowa made 2 shots in their half-court offense. Get this, 2 shots in their half-court offense tonight with 3.5 minutes left in the first half. 3.5 minutes left in the first half. They only made 2 shots from their half-court offense. Their other points from that were 7 free throws and 7 fast break points. Again, relying on the free throws, relying getting to the line, relying on the fast break points. And it shows a lot of resilience from the team that something's not working for you on offense. It's not getting put together for you. It's not going together for you in the half court. You're only getting 2 field goals there. All right, let's get to the line. Let's get out in the fast break. Let's really go for it. And USC, they made it difficult in the fast break as well. A couple chase down blocks. They're, like I said, they have length, they have athleticism. It's difficult with this USC team, but Iowa continued to battle. This Iowa team had one of the worst starts of the season and had every reason to be down double digits going into the second half. But instead, they drew fouls, they played tough defense, they got turnovers, and they forced their transition offense on USC, got out and running. And by the time halftime came, Iowa only trailed by 1 point, 28-27 at the half. Considering the way it started, considering the way they were shooting, that is a fantastic way to go into the second half. And even more fantastic, they started the second half on a 10-0 run in the second half with threes from Al and Stirtz in that. I mean, it was kind of like smooth sailing there for a while. Like I said, in between those 2 runs by USC, they outscored them 66-42. And I started, kind of not nodding off, but like just maybe not paying as much attention because I'm like, okay, Iowa's got this, no big deal. Excuse me. And then you saw Banks get his 4th foul. And that's when Banks had to come out with about 8.5 minutes left in the game. At that point, that's when the offense for Iowa really started to take a hit. Only 4 field goals without Banks the rest of the game. Now, he did come in for about a minute later on, but he got himself a foul. And actually, they didn't score a single time in that minute that he was left in the game. They were scoreless even when they came back for a minute and then fouled out. So only 4 field goals the rest of the game in that 8.5 minute mark. USC almost won with an offensive rebound and a score with 8 seconds left in the game. But a terrible foul by the freshman Eastern there for USC. I mean, he's got to feel terrible because he went in for the steal. They had Bennett Stirtz essentially doubled in the corner in the half court there. They were going to probably get a turnover, maybe get a 5-second call or something like that to help him out. But a terrible foul by him. And Bennett Stirtz is able to hit the free throws, put them up by one. And actually, Cam Woods, he got a pretty good look there at the end of the game. And man, Cam Woods killed him this game. 33 points by Woods. He was fantastic. And talk a little bit more about him here in just a minute. But Woods got a good look. He just wasn't able to hit him. My takeaways from this game was just how resilient Iowa was in the first half comeback through their defensive intensity, not being able to score in the half court offense. And so they were finding different ways to score, get to the free throw line, get out in the fast break and make those kind of things happen. They utilized a pretty dynamic lineup of Sage, Howard, Folgueiras, Hostin, and Bennett Stirtz to kind of give them some momentum, give them some high energy and disrupt this USC offense. Really good coaching there by Bennett McCollum to go to that lineup and know that's the lineup I need to get to. And then, you have really good individual contributions from this Iowa team. The takeaway is that these are the guys you can lean on. These are the guys you need, right? Tavion Banks, he delivered a strong performance with 20 points, 7 rebounds, and 2 steals. It just, the problem was he fouled out, right? But he was perfect from his free throws, 30 straight free throws made. Al stepped up with 14 points overall, 5 rebounds. I'd like to see maybe some more rebounds in this one for him. But overall, in the second half there, when you needed him, when Banks was out in this game, Al was able to come in, score 7 of his 14 points without Banks in the game, which was super crucial for them to have another scorer along Bennett Stirtz, because Bennett Stirtz, they were just giving him everything, man. Their length was difficult for Bennett Stirtz, and their athleticism sticking with him, and they really focused in on him. You could tell USC's goal in this one was don't let Bennett Stirtz beat us, and it worked for a good amount of the game, especially when Banks was out. But Al comes in, and he comes up clutch with some good scores in that one. It was obviously huge to make that happen. My final takeaway is just how strong the defense and the execution was, and the offensive efficiency, kind of came from that. To be able to not have your offense working, but to lock down on defense and really start creating your offense that way was special. And as much as this game was frustrating for Iowa fans, I'm not trying to say it was a great game or anything by that. It was definitely something you look at this team and you say, all right, this could have gone a different way, but we locked down on defense and we were able to survive one of our worst offensive nights of the season and get through this. Now, what do we need to see moving forward to get away from some of this stuff? We need to see some better decision making by Ben McCollum. And Ben McCollum is a fantastic head coach. All right, I'm not trying to say anything bad about him, but he did need some better adjustments when the refs were starting to call everything. It felt like, right, and he needed to use his timeouts a little bit more in some bad situations. I think it was Combs. He was getting cooked on the defensive end quite a bit from Woods. He had a number of threes, straight points that he was able to go put on him, and kind of low. Like I said, Iowa was kind of low key bailed out. Not even low key, high key, I guess you could say. They were kind of bailed out with that foul, but you know what? You were able to make your free throws and make it happen. To me, with this Iowa team, I'm going to continue to look at the late game execution. Has to be stronger for this team. And they have gotten stronger. I'm going to end, like that Rutgers game. They were able to finish that one out and get the win there. But still, in that Rutgers game, you gave up a 9-0 run to cut it to 3 points with about 3 minutes left in that game. Now, obviously, you close out those 3 minutes. You win by 6 in that game, so that's fine. But I'm still thinking of that Minnesota game. Sorry, Iowa fans. I know you don't want me to bring it up, but led by 1 with 2 minutes left after a 21-6 run, a turnover led to a Minnesota layup and free throw in that one. And then, kind of that late game stuff there, that their rally fell short. It was a great comeback, down 14. But kind of some key turnovers and 1 for 4 shooting from the free throw line late just was not good enough. You got to continue to get better in those situations. And I think that's probably the most encouraging thing is you got to continue to get better in those situations. And you did see Iowa, kind of get better in those situations here. You saw Al step up, get 7 points for you there, but the defense needs to be there the entire game. Especially when Banks goes out with a foul. Whatever you have to do, the defense has to be there the entire game. And yes, USC bailed you out with a foul on that one, but you can't rely on that. USC, they're a good team, but they're a little undisciplined and just having a hard time kind of putting it all together. So that is what we have for you for the Big Ten Huddle in this one. Really appreciate you being here, listening, whether you're on podcast, whether you are on, YouTube watching. Appreciate you being here. If you are on podcast, give us a 5-star rating and review. I will also be selecting one person, or put the 5-star rating and reviews during the month of January in the selection as well. So if you give us a 5-star rating, just type something in there so that way I can see your name and figure out how to get to you and everything. And I'll probably announce it if a 5-star rating person wins it. I'll probably announce it on here, and that way you'll know, and you can email me or something like that. But really appreciate everybody being here. Thank you so much for listening and watching to the Big Ten Huddle, and we'll see you next time. Have a good one.